Welcome to a Trekzone conversation. Well, the last time we caught up with today's guest, Mr. Lee Sargent, was before Vegas all bust. We're talking Trek, as we have been all year today. It's time for Star Trek Discovery. Buckle up, because this is going to take a minute.
Now, in its 7th year of podcasting, Trekzone presents a Trekzone conversation with your host, Matt Miller.
Well, it's a huge welcome back to the awesome commentator here at Trekzone, Mr. Lee Sargent. He's part of our other Talkin franchise, Talkin Trek. Lee, welcome back, buddy.
Thank you very much for having me back.
Look, we got through the Berman-era Trek. We talked TNG, DS9, Voyager Enterprise, all those sort of things, and how they've sort of aged over time, and they've sort of become a little bit timeless.
Yes.
There's shows like The Orville that are trying and I think succeeding in replicating that 90s nostalgia and the 90s feel of Trek. But we're here today because a couple of weeks ago we celebrated the 2-year anniversary of its premiere. It is, of course, Star Trek Discovery. And I know that you've got some feelings on this one. There's 29 episodes in the can with another season to come.
Deep breath, deep
breath, everyone. Grab a cup of coffee because this one's going to be good.
This one's going to be all over the place because I think it's an interesting. My warning straight away is these are all personal opinions. I have no agenda. I don't dislike anyone.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on Trekzone do not necessarily represent those of Trekzone.
It's a good idea. Simply because it's what's interesting about Discovery is not even talking about the show, but everything that swirls around Discovery is almost a topic in itself. There's people who hate it irrationally to a point where it is irrational and it's crazy, and there are people who love it irrationally. to a point where it's a militant kind of thing for them, and and then there's middle ground, and the middle ground people I've got a lot of time for.
Folks like my mum who will just sit there every week and watch it and go, I'm glad Star Trek's back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. Or people who watch it and love it. Don't get me wrong. When I say that there's a fringe element of people who love it with a ferocity that is terrifying, there are people just before that who just really love it. And this is their Star Trek. And I think that's awesome. And I've got a lot of time for those people too. But I don't have a lot of time for people who, and this goes on both sides, whose position is locked in concrete and everyone else is wrong, and you're dead to me if you don't believe that Discovery is the worst show ever or Discovery is the greatest show ever, because it is neither of those things.
It certainly did suffer at the start with 3 showrunners in its first few episodes. Even that wasn't to end the showrunner shuffle for the show.
No.
So it's been really incredible, and it sort of has suffered from multiple direction syndrome, MDS. I've just made that up, but it very much so. You look at the 2-part pilot, The Vulcan Hello and Battle at the Binary Stars, had completely nothing to do with Context is for Kings and the rest of that first season, and it very much had to get absorbed into the rest of that season, and it had to be paid off. And it really became, the Klingon War really became a background element to Lorca, and spoiler alert, Lorca returning to the Mirror Universe, and that whole plot line, and Georgiou and all that sort of stuff. So, and then you come into the second season and how we're going to be doing a religious analogy, and maybe not quite fully religious, and at the end of the day, I'm the new showrunner and I don't really like being a prequel series anymore, so let's jump 900 years in the future.
Yeah, I mean, without jumping towards the end, obviously we're going to talk about the show, but I do think that the best outcome is where we got to, and I almost wish that those first 2 episodes in the first season encapsulated everything in the 2 seasons.
Absolutely.
And we started season 1 at the end. So season 1 opened with a 2-parter set in that time period, then shot them forward. What could have been very clever with this, and this is a dangerous territory to go into, because I almost get more irrationally angry about missed opportunities than I do crappy films or bad TV shows, because they had so much potential. So the idea of kind of playing that armchair director or showrunner is like, oh, what they should have done. It's like it's very hard. Like it's fun to kind of do, but then you kind of get yourself worked into a lather about, well, they didn't do it, and it's so everything else is crap. You go, well, it's not. It's it is what it is. In hindsight, looking at the show now, I think it would have been a really interesting idea had you gone. And again, you could have gone old school Star Trek uniforms and everything, and it wouldn't have been a problem. And you actually could have gone old school Star Trek look and feel as far as the bridge and everything's concerned, and then slingshot them into the future, and then had to deal with this old school aesthetic being eroded by this brand new technology. And it would have been, it would have been a really, the day that they trade with whoever, because my understanding is the Federation has collapsed, which I think is a bad idea. But anyway, I digress. But this whole idea of kind of working with other alien cultures, and then so they buy the holographic stuff, and they start installing it and replacing systems, and you basically going through this process of upgrading a 1960s show into current technology, which would have looked, I think, would have actually added a really interesting twist to the whole thing.
And I think it's very interesting from a fan's perspective to sit here, and I actually had that at STLV. I asked a couple of questions, and the response from the actors was, that's such a fan question, and it's not an insult, it's not a derogatory comment. It's us sitting here and going, we're fans of the series. Here's how it should have played out. And as you say, we can say that till the cows come home. But at the end of the day, they're making it, and they're going to do what they want to do.
Well, they have to, and you're never going to look. It's like I kind of also liken it to watching football, or you can watch that on TV and you go, oh, why did he run that way? Because he's on the field, and you're not.
Yeah.
So that's what. Oh, I wouldn't have missed that. Yeah, you would have.
Poor decision, ref.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, they made these decisions with Star Trek, and it's all wrong. And it's like, yeah, but they're obviously in a position where they've had to make these decisions, and they've made them. And they're in the position because they got to wherever they got to, and blah, blah, blah. Say what you will about Alex Kurtzman, he's obviously gotten himself into this position.
And I think if you take the emotion out of, I do wonder whether if Discovery had have come along in the middle of 90s Trek, or not necessarily 90s Trek, but in the golden age of Trek, if we were still in constant production of Star Trek right now, and Discovery was thrown into the mix, I do wonder whether it would be as polarizing as it is, because we are returning to this franchise 13 years later, after it's been off the air, it's been railroaded, the parent company split, all of this sort of stuff's happened. We're sitting there in 2015 wondering if we're ever going to see Star Trek on television again. They go, yep, we're going to have Star Trek on television again, and everyone's gone, beautiful, we didn't like Enterprise, we liked where Voyager finished, so that's where we've got to pick up again. And it's never going to work. You're never going to attract a new audience by picking up where you left off 20 years ago. So we have this new Trek, and I think if you take it on its individual merits, I think that there's a lot to love about the show. As you chuckle in the background,
I've got my Captain Kirk finger up. I have a question.
What does God need with a starship?
I disagree. I think if you were to take the emotion out of everything and the nostalgia and all of that, I think this show is a terrible show and would not have gotten past its first season.
Okay.
And I don't say that to be mean, and I don't say that to criticize anyone who likes it, and I don't even say it to criticize the people who are making it, because the reality is when they made it, they had the weight of Star Trek on their shoulders. And that has to be considered.
And that is a very huge weight.
Yeah, huge weight. So don't. I do not devalue that element of it. However, compared to other TV shows, so not Star Trek, I don't feel that this is the strongest TV show. I think that the problems that it had behind the scenes that translated onto the screen were big enough problems that the show would have struggled. The storyline of Discovery is as you said, it is so many different directions and so little payoff and so little Like it was almost like so we'll say about Lorca. Everyone knew it was the worst kept secret on the planet that Lorca was from the mirror universe, despite the fact that they made up stuff about the light being different and all that type of stuff, which I don't think had been established before.
Well, now you could go back to DS9's mirror episodes.
They established it, did they? Or
well, they didn't necessarily establish it, but if you actually look at them now, they are a lot darker.
But go back to Mirror, man. Go back to the source.
Well, I think too with the DS9 episodes, they had to find a way to differentiate between our DS9 and Terok Nor, and the easiest way to do that from a cinematographer's perspective is to change the lighting.
Exactly. Whereas in Mirror, there's no difference.
No, there's goatees.
There's goatees, and that's about it. And I felt, and Sarek having a goatee was quite on the nose, in my opinion. But then I don't like the Mirror universe, so this is another thing that I need to a caveat.
There's a whole other kettle of fish.
I hate the Mirror universe because it was a clever concept for one episode. But it wasn't. It should never have gone any further because it doesn't make logical sense. So the whole Lorca storyline, though, I felt was mishandled because it was so heavy-handed that by the time that the reveal came, the reveal had no payoff because we all knew. And that wasn't internet. That's not internet speculation. That was just, okay, right. That's what we're doing. Clem Fandango being a Klingon.
Ash Tyler.
Yeah, Ash Tyler. Clem Fandango. But yeah, so that whole kind of that he's a Klingon agent. Dun dun dun. It's like, yeah, we know. Because you couldn't handle those reveals very well. They were very clumsily handled. And then the whole wind was taken out of the sails with the Klingon kind of war was just like fizzed out because they stuck a bomb under Kronos, and then that's how the Chancellor took over because she's got a bomb under the Kronos. I've seen 24. They dismantle bombs. They're very good at it, even today. So I can't imagine that there's no Klingon special forces that specialize in bomb dismantles.
But Lee, this bomb under Kronos was a super convenient plot device bomb.
I know.
They can never be dismantled.
Yes, that's the thing. But they can be forgotten.
Yeah, exactly. And it was.
Yeah. So look, and this is the thing. Individually on episode by episode, sure, great character moments. There's, I like the characters. I felt that they were underused in the first season. I felt that the background characters, and we're used to Star Trek being an ensemble with lead characters, but we're used to kind of
knowing who they are.
Yeah, getting a smorgasbord, and knowing names.
And I mean, it took 16 episodes. I think the names were there.
Oh, they were,
but they were never in dialogue, or they weren't very well in dialogue. They weren't very well explored until the first episode of the second season, and you sort of had Pike come in and do a poll of the room and say, "Tell me who you are and what you're doing." And I think that was more for the audience than it was for Pike.
Yeah, I know, I agree. So then we have season 2. So season 1, look, as I say, I just think season 1 was a mess from the plot point of view. I think the writing, and I understand that it goes through a whole bunch of different things to get to that screen, but I think at the end of the day, it wasn't a coherent story. You can try and force it in your brain to be a coherent story, but the promise of New Trek was that we're going to do Game of Thrones, Westworld, kind of Breaking Bad style storytelling, and it never ever even came to the foot of the mountain for any of those things. The other argument that I hear often is that all Star Trek shows have bad first seasons except for the first one, and I kind of struggle with that as well because Emissary is one of the best pilots and exceptionally good episode of Star Trek, and Deep Space Nine had episodes throughout that first season which were standout excellent episodes, and it was building something. And then again, no show has a brilliant first season. Westworld, I throw that out there. Firefly, if you want an older example of a show that had an amazing first season, which didn't help it any. So, even Battlestar Galactica, the reboot of that, I think that first season was solid. I thought it lost its way a little bit further along the way. visually, I don't like it either. And this is not from I don't want you to change anything, but from a designer's point of view, they over-designed the whole thing. Starfleet symbols all over everything, like it's a Nike symbol. This wasn't, the US Army doesn't put US Army logos all over everything. So yeah, anyway, but you look at the Scouts, they have uniforms and stuff like that. Yeah, I kind of struggle with this whole kind of idea of slapping the Delta on everything to make it kind of complex and blah blah blah, and think, oh look, there's a Delta on the on that component of the gun, and also on that component, and also on that component, and everything's branded, and it's like, no, that's not how they would do that. But anyway, and also I know it's almost hesitant to say it because it's such a trigger point for so many people. But I really didn't like the new Klingon look. I just didn't like it. I'm allowed not to like it. It doesn't make me an evil person.
Well, see, and you're not in the minority there, because the showrunners also didn't like the Klingon look and changed it in the second season.
Yeah.
But it was because we were at war.
Yeah. Look, okay.
I'm trying to imagine Worf shaving his head for the Dominion War.
Also, little things like, and I know, I think we talked about this, but Klingon double junk doesn't. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. All that type of stuff. I struggle with all that, and that's always going to be, that's a personal thing, and I can't put that in the line and say that is a sign of bad quality, because that's not. That is a personal thing, and I'm happy to wear that. But I do believe that a non-biased opinion of looking at the plot structure of that first season, you can't say that it was good or well thought out. It was desperately hanging on to try and get to the end of the season, because of so much disruption behind the scenes or whatever type of thing. Like if they were redoing stuff at the last minute, trying to, maybe listening to Star Trek fans a little bit too much and abandoning their own visions. I don't know. But I know that the show itself, when you take all the emotion out of it, the nostalgia and everything like that, the show itself does not tell a linear, coherent story well. And that is a failing, because it's because you can't step up to the plate and say, we're going to be this new version of Star Trek and this new kind of new storytelling, and then fail to do that new storytelling completely. And that's where the show fails. None of the actors fail. Yeah. The actors are all fantastic. The set design is elaborate and overdone in my opinion, but it was also constructed really well.
Yeah, the sets really irked me because, I mean, the sets are great, but
they're built well. They're a craftsmanship. This is what I'm saying. It's like I can watch a Baz Luhrmann film and appreciate the artistry which goes into it, but I don't like it. You know what I mean? It doesn't devalue it. It just means that it's not for me, because you're never going to. It's like, what's your favorite color? Green. Oh, so you hate blue? No, I just like green.
Yeah.
Oh, so you think blue is crap? No, I'm not saying that. It doesn't devalue blue at all. I just like green, and they're both colors and they're both well done, so it's fine. But yeah, no, I from a personal point of view, no, I don't care for I don't care for it.
Get exclusive access to podcasts and behind-the-scenes info by becoming a member on Patreon today. Supporting Australia's unofficial home of Star Trek gets even better, with membership starting at just $1 per month. Jump over to patreon.com/TrekZoneOrg.au.
The argument that we hadn't evolved as far as we needed to keep Star Trek in the future by developing new technologies for the show that haven't been invented yet. There was this argument that in 20 years we hadn't sort of gone 50 years in the development, or however it worked out, basically justifying why Discovery couldn't be set post Voyager. with the technology that we had to do things. But yet you look at the sets and you look at the ships of what they created for Discovery and you go, but all of that is a technological leap from what we had even on the Enterprise E. The Enterprise E was the first one with flat screens, with the little LCD panels that popped up out of the desk. And now you've got transparent aluminum, if you will, with displays and hollow projections all over the place. That is so much more than what we ever had at the end of Voyager, and almost is the next logical step. Almost to say that argument of 100%.
You know,
the next technological leap we can't think of, so we're just going to go back and redo the visual style. And I'll preface that by saying that I don't really care that they've updated the visual style. That doesn't take away the show for me. I don't now look at that and go, oh, well, that's it. They've totally destroyed the original series. I can't ever watch 1960s Trek again. Because, you know, I mean, I guarantee you that if they had the technology in the 60s to do what they were doing in the 90s, they would have. George Lucas and Star Wars. I mean, there's a reason he did 4, 5, 6 before 1, 2, 3, according to him. So
that's a lie.
He just couldn't count.
It's a misnomer, because you go back and you read the original scripts. George Lucas was always the reason why Star Wars starts at 4 is because it was a homage to the sci-fi serials from his childhood. So what would happen is you'd go to the movies and you'd see Flash Gordon episode 23 or something of a serial that was shown before the movies. You never saw the first episode and saw it through. Or maybe you did if you went every day. So it was actually a homage to that. This idea that you were stepping into the middle of the story, not at the start type of thing. That's what that always was. And he tells stories that he had them all planned out. He didn't. he had the 3 planned out to a degree, and he expanded on it over the years. And then he kind of fed into the myth,
steered into it.
Yeah. Look, and he probably had ideas, but that's my understanding is that that's a bit of a that's more of a marketing thing than an actual real thing. Where he just, because even if you go back and look, as I said, at the original scripts, they were very different to what wound up being on screen. So you can't say what was on screen was actually that original kind of, you know, he had it all plotted out the entire time. It's like, I don't believe that for a second. I think, because to be honest, I think what happened was, I say it's over designed. I think that you could update original Star Trek aesthetics with today's technology and still look futuristic and still look like you've come from that. Whereas I felt that what they did was they just went full tilt, and it was very jarring.
If we're going to redesign it, we're going to redesign it all.
Yeah, and I kind of, so I took great offence at, I can't remember the gentleman's name, one of the editors or the producers or the writers or someone associated with Discovery, who tweeted in an argument with a bunch of fans, "Do you really want us to look like a cheap 60s show?" And I struggle immensely with that dismissive, belittling statement, suggesting that Star Trek is a cheap 60s show.
Which it actually wasn't.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't. But I think it's reductive about it's so crazy to kind of say, to loathe that thing that you came from. Like, Star Trek is iconic and it is on a pedestal, and I don't care what anyone says. If you don't like it, don't play in the universe. Go and make another sci-fi show. If you want to make a Star Trek show, you need to, and Next Generation distanced itself massively from original Star Trek, but they did it in such a way that it was still connected. You could still see the family lineage there. and they were smart enough to set it in the future. So you saw the progression towards the Enterprise D. Hell, we saw it on the wall. We saw the progression of the ships. I felt that statement was everything that irked me about everything they changed. Was this idea that they felt that they could design better than what Matt Jeffries did. And again, I come back to the Klingon ships. So forget the Enterprise. I'm not even going to go to the Enterprise yet. But the Klingon ships. Now, we all know what Klingon ships look like. We've seen Klingon ships. If you go back to Star Trek: The Motion Picture, the opening sequence of Star Trek: The Motion Picture is still one of the best and most impressive depictions of these battleships in space. And the cinematography is amazing. The model is exceptional. When they're firing on a giant cloud, which is ridiculous. But, you got these 3 Klingon warships. They look amazing. Oh, we're going to make them look more alien and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but okay, go do a different show. This is what Klingons look like. And forget even the makeup side of things. I don't even care about the makeup side of things at that point. But I want to see a Klingon, not necessarily a bird of prey, because there's problems with that. But, the old D7s and stuff like that, I want to see the precursors of those. I want to see Klingon ships that I recognize, not the organic, looked more like the Narada from Star Trek 2009. I don't understand the thinking around that, because to me it's offensive to the original designers of those ships, saying, well, this is today and that design doesn't hold up. It's like, well, that's bullshit. I don't know if I can say that on this.
I'll let you say it.
Okay.
I agree with a lot of that, but there is a
the shuttlecraft is a good example, right? The shuttlecraft does not need to look as boxy. I will completely wear that. This is where my line is not straight. It's a jagged line all over the place, where what I don't care about and what I do care about. So, and so there's no rhyme or reason to this. Again, none of this, what I'm saying, is law. I'm not saying that this is before everyone's, blocking me on Twitter, which is apparently the standard now if you don't agree with someone, or you just don't like something they say once, just get into the old block mode. So before everyone starts blocking me, this is not me telling, if you don't agree, I'm not saying you're wrong, because this is just from my personal point of view, and you can only speak to your personal point of view. And that's and that's where you kind of get confused and think, Lee's declaring the universal laws. I'm not, because if I was in charge of the universal laws, don't worry, the world would be a big different place. Exactly.
Well, there's an argument. I don't know whether it's still around, but there was an argument online that Discovery had to be 25% different to the existing franchise, which I don't buy into.
Oh, I did.
Considering CBS.
I did, and I don't have a problem with that. I actually like that explanation, because it makes me kind of...
Makes sense, I guess.
Well, no, I'm not even like... I think it was said like it was a negative thing. And it's like all that licensing argument, which we've discussed in the past. There's a channel, I don't know if you name other channels or anything, but there's a channel that kind of kicked that all off with the whole, there's this prime universe and there's this non-prime universe, and
yes.
It's all fictional, which is crazy.
Yes.
The prime universe doesn't exist, so just everyone chill. It's not the real universe. Ours is the prime universe.
Yes. Ours is the only one that matters.
Our universe is real. Their universe is a fake universe. So, honestly. But they were kind of pointing out the whole... So there was a J.J. Abrams kind of universe, the Kelvin timeline kind of universe, but it extended further because of the rights. And so they had to change everything by 25% or something like that. Or they had to change everything by 75% or whatever that number was. And everyone kind of freaking out about that, saying, oh, it's, that's why it's shit. And it's like, no, there's a condition that they had to work with. Suddenly I'm like, okay, well, I understand why you changed everything then. Now I understand. It's not, you're not being disrespectful to Matt Jeffries. You're not saying that you know better. You're saying, look, we have to do this. We got to put a spoiler on the back of the ship, otherwise, we can't make money out of the toys. It's like, well, that's fine because I've never seen a Discovery toy anywhere, so I'm not really sure why that would be a problem.
Well, but I do wonder about that from Discovery's point of view, because CBS owns the original series. It was only the movies that were spun off to Paramount as the separate entity, which they're now merging again. So it was only J.J. Abrams that needed to be 25% different.
But the Bad Robot was involved with the show.
Right. So they're transferring,
which I think is it was the Bad Robot issue, not so much. So when CBS, so it was a joint production, I think, and so what happened was, and this is where I think some people got confused too, because they kind of said, well, no, that's not true then, because they had scenes from the cage in the first episode of the second season. No, they could license everything from original Star Trek. So technically they could have made everything look like original Star Trek if they wanted to. But the problem for them would have been that any merchandising they wouldn't have made money off, because they'd licensed it from CBS, and CBS owned the likeness of, so the phaser, for instance. Had they made the phaser exactly the same as original series? This is my understanding. I don't know. I have no sources. So I did air quotes at everyone. I have no sources.
Just tomato barbecue sweet chili.
Exactly. That's all I've got, and they're fine. They're very good. No, but my understanding was that if you had a phaser from original Star Trek in Discovery, and that's the phaser that you used, you couldn't sell toys of that phaser, because CBS owned that rights to still that to the revenue from that toy. And then the idea was I could sell a Discovery version of the phaser, and that money would go into the whatever we call it, the J.J. Abrams universe coffers.
Yep.
Despite being the same brand and all that type of stuff. That's my understanding of that. But again, it's a weird one, because, as I say, I haven't seen any Discovery toys.
Yeah. No.
I know there's a replica phaser which has been on pre-order for a very, very long time, but it's too expensive for my blood. I just want a plastic dinky one from Playmates. But there are none of those. There are no figurines of Saru.
No.
So I don't really understand if
this.
That was such a big issue, because I know that all the 2009 toys kind of bombed. And I know why they bombed, is because they were crap. It's nothing to do with the film, nothing to do with people liking stuff. It was just the toys were not well made. I had a Spock and I had a Kirk, and they had rubber on them, and they weren't. The Playmates ones were really good quality toys, solid plastic, last a lifetime. I got a Riker, a battle damaged Riker, who has no other damage on him apart from his intended damage, and he's been kicking around the house for years. Because I don't care about the figurine. I got it from I think I might have bought something on eBay and got it and it might have been thrown in. But what I'm saying is it was really good, sturdy, solid toy, and it looks like Riker. Whereas the 2009 toys were just very poorly put together. The phaser was white. Things like that. It was just ugh.
It's almost going back to those the old stories of how Star Trek toys got started, just using production line stuff and smashing it out just to get product on the shelf.
It felt a little bit like that, except that they weren't. They were all custom.
Yeah. Crazy.
So anyway, so that's my understanding of the reason why Discovery was different, and I actually had no problem with that. I don't see that as a negative, and everyone was kind of using that to beat them over the head. And I'm like, well, no, that actually, to me, that kind of validates the design choices that they've made. And I don't know why it's a problem. It was the same issue that I had with when someone kind of said, oh, look, it's not in the same timeline. It's not in the Prime Universe or whatever. It's its own thing. And everyone's up in arms about this, saying, no, the producers or the writers have said that this is definitely a Prime Universe. And it's like, yeah, but it definitely can't be. But anyway, that's a different argument, because we've moved to, it's 50 years on. It's not the same universe. It just can't be.
Yeah.
even if you wanted it to be, it couldn't be. But I never saw what the problem was, that even if it was.
Mm.
And then that's when they talked about the rights. They didn't want the third party manufacturers to be under the impression this wasn't the prime universe. And I'm like, I don't think that the third party, the people who make bookmarks and calendars and phone covers and figurines, I don't think they cared.
Yes.
I don't think in any pitch meeting at all they went, this is Prime Universe. And they went, you mean our universe? No, Prime Universe, the real universe of Star Trek. What is that?
Yeah.
I don't think any business person outside of the industry would know what the hell you're talking about. So I just raise questions about that too. I don't really understand any of that. But all that could be rubbish, and that's the thing, because who knows what the sources are. But I don't have any problem with any of that. That's the thing which I think is the weirdest scenario for me, is that I don't see any of that as negative. I see that as all positive, because it just means that this is what we're playing with, and I don't have any problem with that. Because let's get back to the show. I mean, I hated Saru when it first started. I loved Saru by the end of it.
Mm.
So I went on a journey with Saru, a ridiculously dumb character, to, you know what, I kind of like Saru, to, look, I really like Saru, to, unfortunately, season 2, I'm not as big a fan of Saru anymore.
Well, it's something...
And not because his gangly fell off. I don't have a problem with that. I just I just don't know if they went in the right direction with him.
New content is being added all the time to Trekzone's YouTube channel, Talking Science with Dr. Brad Tucker on Tuesdays, Trekzone Live on Thursdays, and a Trekzone Conversation on Saturdays. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe and ring the bell to get fresh public releases.
Well, what I've said all along is that we're never going to know Discovery's story until it's finished.
Yeah,
and I think at that point, and only at that point, can we look back on the series and go, this was shit, this was brilliant.
See, now you're saying it. Because I opened the floodgates.
Well, I mean, you just don't know. You cannot cannot judge the series as a whole. In my mind, you can't write off the entire series based on something that because it is still in production. We don't know where they're going to go. I mean, if it turns out
Enterprise season 1, if you stopped at Enterprise season 1. You just go, they don't know what they're doing.
Not the worst TV show, but certainly one of the worst treks. Yeah. Where are they going with that?
Easily, yeah, but you watch four seasons, and as a whole, you kind of go, whoa, yeah, I can forgive a lot in that first season.
And you can also see the progression of these characters and their justifications for what they do in season 3 and 4 from where they came from in season 1 and 2.
Exactly.
And the same sort of things here as well. I think some of the things that the supporting characters did in season 2 was because of where they came from in season 1. I still don't think Discovery's hit its stride necessarily. It's certainly is picking up the pace. I do wonder if when they break these shackles of being before Star Trek, how are they going to be? Okay, maybe the Federation's destroyed. Maybe that's a good thing, a bad thing, whatever it might be. But are we going to turn it into Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda?
Yes, that's what I think they're going to do. I think that's 100% what they're going to do, and I think that's a huge mistake.
It'll be. Well, I mean, there'll certainly be no canon that they can stuff up.
But yes and no, because this is the problem that I have, is the idea that the Federation has collapsed. And I have a problem with that because I don't feel that fits, and I hate saying this. I really hate saying this because I don't agree with this being used all the time. But I don't feel that it embodies the Star Trek vision that the Federation was something waiting to collapse.
Does it give us the ability to retrospectively analyze the Federation? Is that something that needs analyzing?
I don't think it does. That's the thing. I think you've also got to remember that Star Trek is a story-driven universe. It's not a real thing. So when people kind of say, oh, you have to do this and you have to that, you don't have to do any of that. I look at it like this. Could you do a Dr. Seuss book without rhyming? Yeah. But why would you? Like, why would you do Green Eggs and Ham without the lyrical element to it? Oh, because in the real world there's this. It's like, yeah, but we're not talking about the real world. We're talking about the Dr. Seuss land. You don't always have to change it like that. If you see what I mean. Like, do we need to see do we need to see a House of Cards, Lord of the Rings? You know, do we need to see? I don't always feel that the medium has to be everything, and I guess that's where I kind of go with the Section 31 stuff. I kind of, oh yeah, but you know, in reality, bad things happen. It's like, yeah, okay, watch 24. That's what 24's for. They explore that really well. That whole kind of covert doing things that you would kind of for the greater good, but they're kind of bad. They actually do that really well. Stay in your lane is, I guess, what I'm saying. And just be really good at what you do.
It's interesting too because a lot of the talk of Section 31 has died away.
Yes, it has.
And when I spoke to Shazad Latif at STLV and asked him that question, I can't remember whether it was on the show or before or after our chat, but it very much was, so what's happening with Section 31? And the answer was, well, we'll see how we go next year, whether projects have lined up or not. So there's no commitment on the show at all, it seems.
I think that they got a rush of blood to their head.
And I think it's also the reason that they've said nothing about Pike. Because Georgiou, there was this reaction to Georgiou and they went, okay, beautiful, we're giving her a show. And now there's been a reaction to Pike and they've gone, we'll give him a short trek or two.
This is one of my criticisms of season 2, is that it was the Pike show. And I'm fine with that because I love Captain Pike. I thought he was brilliant. I think extraordinarily good casting. I think the writing could have been a little bit broader as far as he was very much this perfect man character who was very, very woke. And I don't say that to be dismissive of kind of, you know, any movements or anything like that. But if you go back and look at the Cage, he's like, why they would give me a female yeoman, I don't understand. He was a troubled guy with a heavy weight on his shoulders, and the character that we saw was supposed to be after that, and I don't believe that he went through some sort of awakening of suddenly going, oh, you know what, now I'm the perfect man, which he really is in this show. He's really the perfect man. Very well-rounded, very reasonable, self-assured, all that type of stuff, but not sexist, not misogynist, you know, not racist, all that type of stuff. He's this embodiment of, and he's not quite real.
There's products of your time, but then there's also bringing those characters forward, and even though all of that sort of stuff would probably be unacceptable by now, but
don't get me wrong. I don't need to see him, like, you know, patting some woman on the butt, because that's what they would have done in Mad Men. I have no problem. But he is also he is still a human, and I struggle a little bit with how perfect he was. I just felt they went too far that direction of he's the uber perfect man, because in the same season we also had the anti version of that, the sexist, misogynist science officer who dies for Cheers, and I have
in the first episode
huge problems with that, and this is where I don't think it's any secret that I'm a middle-aged white man and all the privileges that go with that, obviously. However, I read someone said it's not my words, unfortunately, but someone pointed out and said, "Are we really cheering the death of a Starfleet officer who went through Starfleet Academy, who has served the Federation, has done all this type of stuff? Are we really cheering their death because you decided to give them one? They're a one-note character of they're a douchebag." So we've gone uber perfect man in Captain Pike to uber representative of all the worst things on the internet. And it's just too much of it's too on the nose for me. had he, what a better way of doing it would have been him doing that, and then Captain Pike snapping him and saying, "Lieutenant, we stow that crap in our rooms." A little bit like the scene in original Star Trek where that guy on the episode of Balance of Terror says, "Why don't you ask Spock?" And Kirk handles that situation with, "I assume that's because you're complimenting Mr. Spock on his abilities to decode alien languages, and not being bigot on my bridge." And that's a better way of commenting on that, because then that officer he's had a slip because he's human. We know that society doesn't tolerate that stuff, and Kirk correctly had a conversation with him, and he went on a journey anyway and became, but he was also given reasons for hating the Romulans, and I think that's very important. Whereas what we had in Discovery, we have perfect Captain Pike, and then we have completely loathsome douchebag, hates women, is condescending. I mean, but it's, when someone's condescending for the right reasons, it's all funny. But he wasn't being condescending for the right reasons, apparently. I struggle with that a lot, and that was jarring for me in that first episode, and didn't set us off on the right path as far as this tone was concerned, because up to that point I didn't have a problem with any of the messages that kind of Discovery was giving. Like, I know there's a lot of YouTube videos out there talking about, this woke movement or whatever.
All right, well, let's start wrapping this up.
Yep.
We're heading.
Well, funny enough, we've talked more about around the show than the actual show itself, because I think that's actually what's happened in general for Discovery. Is Discovery has not isn't conversation around Discovery is not based around Discovery. It is around the show itself. It feels more that it's about the political whatever around it.
Yeah. I haven't found the rewatch factor in Discovery yet in terms of individual episodes. Like, if I want to see Lorca's progression again, I'll watch the entire first season, and I did watch the entire first season again. If I want to see Pike's journey, then I could rewatch the second season. But I think that Discovery is missing that element of Star Trek of standalone episodes.
Oh yeah.
I think to say that it's a product of 2017 to 2019 television is wrong, because the Orville proves that you can do standalone episodes, and I loathe to bring Orville up in a parallel to Discovery, but it proves that people will watch it. They will watch standalone episodes, and they're brilliant for expanding the characters, even though I think that Orville hasn't really expanded on their characters a lot. There is the room.
I guess for me, it's I look at it more as I like to compare Discovery to Westworld, because Westworld, you wouldn't go back and watch individual episodes, I don't think. Well, I wouldn't anyway. But as a whole, season 1, Westworld is compelling. It's a story that unfolds gently until it gets to the end, and you're just like, wow. And that's what I think Discovery wanted to do. And I just don't think that they hit the mark. And that's what I would compare it more to, because I know what you mean too about the standalone episodes, because they're also trying to do standalone episodes. It's almost like this kind of, again, and I'm with you, I'm loath to even say the name, do what the Orville's doing. Pick one. You're not going to get both, because both doesn't work. And maybe it does, I don't know. But I can't, maybe Battlestar Galactica is a good example of that working, but I can't think of any episodes that I'd watch of Battlestar Galactica again. I did want to, and I know we are wrapping up, but I did want to mention too, while I get it all off my chest, what I felt was a problem in season 2 was that the Spock, Pike, number 1 trio overshadowed everything and stole some of the thunder, I think, from the Discovery cast.
Yeah, they really sort of still haven't struck out on their own.
No, because it was a matter of there was the gee whiz factor of seeing Spock.
Yep.
A character they said they would never show, but there we go. Seeing number 1, who was grossly underused, but then that's probably not a bad thing, because when she was on screen, it's amazing, because I think she's actually embodied that really well for what it is.
For the promotion that she received pre-season 2, she really wasn't in it.
No.
At all.
No, not at all. So I think it all became very much their show, with supporting from Saru and blah, blah, blah. I can't even tell you what the engineer's storyline was, what Anthony Rapp's storyline was, apart from, I think, the fact that the Doctor came back.
That was about it.
But that was about it. He didn't really go on any kind of journey apart from that, and that wasn't really his journey. Tig, as the engineer, was amazing.
But again...
and I would like to have seen her incorporated
and
properly.
See her, and assuming that she's still on the ship.
No, I hope so, because I think she should have been the chief engineer. And that's, Paul Stamets is great, but he's a spore drive engineer.
I don't think he ever was the chief engineer, though.
No, that's right. I don't think he was either.
But see, again, that's very TNG season 1. There was no chief engineer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I struggle with that. As I said, I didn't like Tilly's kind of storyline. I didn't like how she became a bit of the poster child for, I don't want to say millennials, I whatever, this internet culture people. She, the science, and that's the power of math. And then even Spock's line, I like science, it kind of made me want to vomit a little bit, because it's pandering to social media.
Yeah, and it's something. I mean, it really is something that Star Trek hasn't had to grapple with at all, ever.
Yes, I do too.
And I think they're getting caught up in that. They're not necessarily trying to pander to the fan base. They're trying to pander to all of social media and provide these things instead of just telling your story and having the social media as the supporting element.
Well, have it come out of that, because I mean, again, you go back to Breaking Bad. Say my name. It's a line in a line in an episode. It's not done to be a catchphrase, but it became one because it was amazing.
I'll be back.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's you. I like science. I struggle with it because I just don't see Leonard Nimoy saying it. And I guess that's and this is always going to be the problem for the poor gentleman who played Spock, is that you're not Leonard Nimoy.
Ethan Peck, and to
Ethan
a certain
Peck.
degree, Zachary Quinto as well.
Yeah, I mean, Zachary Quinto, I kind of I give him a lot more leeway because Leonard Nimoy endorsed him, and that's not Ethan Peck's fault at all.
Yeah.
But because they work so closely together, that I kind of felt almost like I can forgive a lot. But no, he's not Leonard Nimoy either. 100%. He's definitely a different Spock.
Yeah.
What I will say about Discovery in closing, rather than kind of going through, because we've been very negative, and I do want to say some positive stuff about it, because it's exciting to have Star Trek on TV, and it's exciting to be able to talk about it, and I'm really excited about where they go. And I liked so much of little things in the show, and I love some of these characters. I can't wait to see a proper storyline from Saru outside of what they've kind of already done. I'm not sure. Learning more about Kelpians, I'm not sure how I feel about it. But we don't know anything about Kelpians, so everything we learn is new anyway. But I do feel that they did miss one last opportunity, and I cannot forgive them for it. I feel that they completely missed the mark and completely missed everything. Is that they didn't have T'Pol on.
Yeah.
There was a rumor going around a couple of years ago, a year ago, I think, that Jolene Blaylock had been contacted to play an elderly T'Pol. And I went, you know what? All is forgiven. All is forgiven. If you bring me T'Pol, live action T'Pol on in a show, I'm there. I'm done. You'll have my undying love. But they didn't, of course. The other one was Cybok. Had they mentioned Cybok once, it would have gone a long way for me to go, okay, I get it, everyone.
Yeah.
I get it. Wink. It's fine. You do what you need to do, because you respected kind of that element that's probably not as respected as it could be. But yeah, so there's my only two kind of complaints where they could have. I think they swung too hard with Spock to bring Spock in, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I believe that's the perfect version of Spock. I don't know if he necessarily embodied Spock like I would have liked, but I don't know if anyone ever could, which is why you don't bring the character on board. And I guess that's always been the argument for Star Trek Discovery about being set in the past, is you're just opening yourself up for pain, because everyone's always going to compare you. Whereas if you're doing your own thing, you can be left alone and do really good work and not be criticised.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, Lee. Well, that is Talkin Trek Discovery. We're making our way through the entire franchise here in 2019. It's been a thrill to chat with you for the last little bit about Discovery. Hopefully season 3 will knock your socks off.
Yeah. Look, I'm open to it, and I think what they've done is they've set it up in such a manner that I can come to that season 3 with a completely open mind and without any prejudice. I think that I think that was a smart move, and I think it's probably the smartest move they've done in the show so far.
Absolutely. Lee Sargent, thanks for talking Trek.
Thanks very much for having me.
You can get social with Trekzone. Australia's unofficial home of Star Trek is everywhere you are. Get the wrap up on our Facebook page. Keep in the loop on Twitter and relive Trek episodes on Instagram. Just search for Trekzone.